Welcome to Sales Made Easy, a podcast for business and personal growth. Now, here's your host, Harry.
Systems and processes. That's what we're going to be talking today on the Sales Made Easy podcast with our great guest, Mike LeJeune, who is the president of Lighting the Path Training. He's an executive coach, a workshop retreat facilitator, and he's a guy that understands the value of having systems and processes in place so your business can scale. So Mike, welcome to the Sales Made Easy podcast. What's a good word, sir?
Good connecting with you again. I love this thing about Sales Made Easy because in my mind, sales is not simple, right? There's a whole lot of stuff that goes into it. But you're trying to constantly put these, like you said, systems and processes in place so you can scale and you're not having to bang your head up against the wall all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I think a real challenge for people is thinking about a system and a process, right? If you've come from like certain fields where you might be very creative, you might not necessarily think that you actually have a system in place. Mm-hmm. But in sales, like for years, I didn't really view it as a quote unquote system, but everything about it is a system, right? There is a sequence of events. There's looking for your ideal client. It's having conversations and what types of conversations and bringing them down a path, which is clearly a system. So with you, sir, what comes to mind where someone who has a smaller business and they're thinking they want to scale eventually, what advice would you give to people early on?
Yeah, you're making me think about the time that I took over as vice president of sales for a company. I was a sort of a business unit manager. So I was a startup. I was starting up a brand new division within a company, and the VP was being replaced, and they said, "Let's go hire one." And then one of the managers looked around, and says, "The person you're describing is Mike." And the CEO at the time looked at me and goes, "My gosh, you're right. Mike, I want you to take this job on, and I want you to go in and teach people to sell like you sell." And I went, "Cool. How do I sell?" Because I'd not gone to a sales training course, and it was just something that kind of evolved over time. Yeah. You make enough mistakes, and I'm not doing that again.
Right.
And what I found was that for me, and when I think about this from a sales standpoint, for most businesses and business owners who may be listening in on this, find a process that works for you. For me in sales, the foundational sales tool that I found over the years is called SPIN, the SPIN selling process, Neil Rackham's book. And it transformed the way that I thought about growing business. And the reason for that, it moved me out of pitch mentality into questioning mentality. And I think that if I were growing and trying to scale a business, you have to really move into that mode to be able to look at its situation and ask questions about not just the client's needs, but also about what you're trying to deliver, whether it be product or services. And every aspect of our business is driven by a system. The question is how effective we are. If you think about, you and I were talking about McDonald's, right? They have a system. They've got a system of, first of all, of producing the product, but they also have a system of being able to bring customers in the door with their outreach. Unfortunately for me, their system was predicated on giving kids toys early on.
Right.
My daughter wanted to go to McDonald's, not for the food, she wanted the toys, and we lived at McDonald's.
Yeah.
But they have a system that's in place with that.
Yeah, so good. And this, I love the book, Spin Selling by Neil Rackham is incredible. And it's still valid today. I mean, it
still is.
Right.
It's called Overarching Principles. It's like your Selling with Dignity book. All right.
Yeah.
It's foundational truth that is overarching principles. It crosses industries. It crosses timelines. It's the same thing when you look at spin selling. And when I think about it, you're asking about putting systems and processes in place. The focus needs to be on leading indicators versus lagging indicators. McDonald's works on not the dollars that are in the cash register drawer. That's a lagging indicator. What McDonald's works on is all of the steps that it takes in order to get the dollars in the door, from the attraction of people to the production to the logistics, if you're going to pick three categories to work with. All businesses have steps that you take in order to produce the end results. And what happens is most of us, not only for ourselves, we focus on the lagging indicator, but what we don't do is we don't develop a culture within our organizations to have our team looking at what are the things that it takes that we need to do with excellence in order to be able to achieve whatever product or service we're trying to draw. What are the steps or stages we need to go through so that they can push themselves? So I don't have to be walking around like the lion tamer with a chair and a whip trying to get people to do things.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that are going through my mind here, but I used to work years ago for a Fortune 500 company, and we would have forecast meetings. And I was not a big fan of forecast meetings because the best numbers were always in the forecast, not in the results.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so people played the system, and I think that was a challenge, is because it's real easy to play the system and you can't get inside every deal. It's pretty difficult to do that as a sales leader. There's has to be some trust, but it's pretty easy to pick up on the, for lack of a better word there, as to what's going to happen and what isn't. So for the smaller business though, where it's now you and maybe another person or a couple of people, it's a whole lot easier, because then you can look at deals versus looking at 8 or 10 or 20 people's deals, which is now you're looking at 400 possibilities, and there's not enough time in the month to do that.
Yeah, but you bring up a really good point with this, Harry. The mistake that we make, that I've made over the years, is that if you look at the example you have, your Fortune 500, the people are producing these reports, these forecasting reports, and a lot of times they produce numbers that they want to see, right? As opposed to, and I know early on I made the mistake of putting forecasts together, and my numbers were this big, and my boss would come and say, "No, you're capable of that, much bigger than that." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I want to hit my numbers." No, and so would have me go back 3 times to be able to come up with an accurate number. What I found over the years, and what I encourage the people listening to or watching our discussion today, is think in terms of what I call pulse points. And what I mean by that is you talk about the deals that you're trying to manage. In every transaction, in every business, that there are pulse points that if these 3 things happen, it moves toward a successful conclusion. In the recruiting industry that I spent over 25 years building executive search and staffing companies, what you have is that nothing happened unless a presentation was made of a candidate to a client. And then nothing happened unless a candidate was interviewed. Those are 2 pulse points. Now, if I came into work every day and I looked at the submittals that were going out and I looked at the interviews that were taking place, I could tell you very quickly what's the temperature of the revenue stream for my company, the future revenue stream. And I also knew that from a sales cycle standpoint, we worked on about a 37 to 45 day sales cycle, meaning that we would start a project today to try to fill a job, and it would take normally about 37 to 45 days to fill it on average.
Okay.
So you look at from a systems and process, you go back and you look at what are the key things that if this doesn't happen, we're destined for failure, right? And you focus on that, and then you hone that down, and you get your teams to focus on that. It's the rule of 3. The 3 is a really powerful number. If you think in terms of comedy, listen to your comedians. That you don't see 4 or 5 things said to get to the punchline. It's always 3. It's a cadence. It's boom, boom, bop. Okay, you're looking at that. Or it's boom, bop, bop. And so I've studied this thing. What I found is that if every day, as a leader, if I could get the 3 things that are most important for me to be responsible for done, to move the ball. That's over my shoulder over there.
Okay. I see that.
To move, but I live with this. Is how do I move? What are the 3 things I need to do to move the ball? Looking at this month as an owner of a business, you're in a startup mode. There's so many things you got to get done. You take a step back and figure out if everything I get done, if I don't get that done, so I can focus my attention to get that system and process worked out, whether it be inventory, whether it be production, whether it be sales and marketing, so that you're looking at things from systems and processes. So then what happens, you're managing the numbers that fit inside of that system, the process you're doing, as opposed to managing the people. And it also keeps you focused because of the people that are listening to it and that are followers of yours. They don't just have one or two things to get done in a day's time. They'll put the best laid plan they want to, and they'll walk into work, and the next thing you know, there's a phone call comes in, and it's going to totally undo them. And they have to have something to come back to say, okay, but today I got to make this happen. And it's that sort of that hyper intensity toward driving things forward is really where their success comes from, especially as an entrepreneur.
So good. Okay. So now that I have you, and your mind is clearly is different for a lot of reasons than mine, I'd like to hear from you the value of an entrepreneur or someone starting a startup, about them being the salesperson, them selling.
Yeah, it's critical.
Right. Okay. So talk to me about that, and maybe how do we help that person become more system focused, if you will, on sales?
Sure. Three steps that I think that if I'm owning my business, because I'm not hardwired to be in sales. I'm hardwired to be customer service. That's looking back. I didn't know that.
Right.
I made a career in sales, but looking back on it, it was because I had to just push the heck out of myself. But what I found is, and the coaching that I do with somebody who's a business leader, is that the first thing you have to look at is that you can't be doing it all by yourself. So you got to constantly be thinking of, what's my network? I got to, every week, I got to build my network, my connections of people that can help expand my reach. All right. And what I mean by that is you want to have a banker, a CPA, and attorney, but beyond that, if you're involved in some service sector, who do you know who may actually even be a competitor? Are you involved in a trade association so that you have opportunities every month or every quarter to step out of your business so that you can work on your business and not be trapped in your business? So you're constantly trying to expand the network. Number two is what I found that in most, especially if it's a service-oriented business, you'll find that a large percentage of your revenue is coming from referrals. If you're running a quality service business, it's going to be probably the largest revenue stream, not 100% of it, but a large part of it. So if that's the case, then your network is going to be a large part of fueling. And so if somebody is not wired like I was to be in sales, I was fortunate that I would connect with somebody. And what can I do to anchor my relationship with? And the best way to do that is find ways to connect with them, to get to know about them. What is it I need to know about? What do I know about them personally? What do I know about what they're doing? So now what happens is I'm making so-called sales calls. What I'm doing is I'm making investigative information calls about. I love this time of the year. Favorite sales question to ask: hey, you staying in town for the holidays? Or you taking the family out? Because what it does, it gets that person to talk to you. I love spring. Why? Because I get to talk about summer vacation. Yeah. Heading to place it now. The beauty of it is you make a note so that you call the person back in January or February, goes, hey, how was your Christmas trip? They're blown away that you actually remembered that.
Right.
But it's a personal connection. So there's a network part of it. Number two is recognize that when you're selling and you're trying to grow your business, that as the owner, you have to strengthen your saw to be able to produce revenue. Because if you don't, then you're relying upon other people or things outside of your control. You have to be the person who's a catalyst. That's my dad. My dad really gave me that word. He looked at me one day and says, Mike, you're a catalyst. I'm going, Pop, I didn't even know you, from South Louisiana. He spoke French before he spoke English, but he's a really bright guy. And I loved these analogies he came up with. And I said, tell me what you mean. He goes, your job is to go in there, and because of your interaction with two people, something happens.
Oh my goodness. That's so good.
And so think about this as a leader of an organization. You have to be the catalyst to be able to make things happen. And so, what I found, because of the kind of the example you said, that sometimes people have a hard time selling, but they're leading, they need to, they put the wrong definition to success in the sales process. And what I mean by that is that if the definition of success is making the sale, you're going to fail about 95 to 98% of the time. But if you shift your definition to, when I connect with you, what have I learned from this conversation about you, about your business, about the marketplace? What have I learned from that? Now I've flipped that around and I'm going to find 75, 80% of my time I've got success with my interaction with you. And so now I'm shifting the hesitation that I found that people have in that circumstance where they don't feel comfortable in sales is because of the word rejection, right? And I love this analogy. You know, they're afraid if I call it no, right? No. I said, look, take no and convert it by sticking some letters on either side of it. Take no and convert it to not now.
Yeah, right.
Right. Because what happens is I'm interacting with you today and we don't have time to go through the list of opportunities that I was able to bring to a successful conclusion that literally took weeks, months, some even years.
Right.
But they have a tendency to magnify themselves.
Oh, this is so textbook, Mike. It's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, I just love this conversation because it like the podcast Sales Made Easy. Sales does not need to be gross. It's just having conversations, finding out what people need. And you take away, I'm not bothering. I'm finding out if they need something or how I can help them. So sometimes it may not be tied into our product or service. Right.
Well,
but you talk to me.
What made me think about is a conversation I had with somebody yesterday who was going out on an interview, executive, he's in your role. And my conversation with him, we were talking about his amazingly talented person. I mean, literally gifted with his experience.
Oh, you mean like me? Very gifted.
Yeah, like you. That's why I thought of this guy. I mean, I thought of this example.
Yeah.
But we were talking about the fact that he and I shared something. My wife refers to me as the best kept secret. I'm the world's worst self-marketer, and I teach this stuff.
Great.
But what happens is we get caught up in this situation where I don't want to be perceived as pushy. I don't want to be perceived as that sales guy, right? That's only interested in himself, who doesn't care about me, is only trying to make a buck. And so I've gone through great extremes to try to not make that happy. But what happens is if you can convert the mindset of what sales is, it's a relationship. And it's kind of like trying to take it to a dating type of thing. If I go out on a sales call, if I go out on a date and I walk in the door with a woman that I just met, and I say, would you like to marry me? That date's not going to go real well. There's a process that I have to go through to get to know her and her to get to know me. And the challenge we have in today's time is that everything's sort of super like now type of thing. And so what we have to do is, again, it goes back to systems and processes. I have to have a way of going in and vetting you and how quickly can I find out your wants, needs, and interests. Even as simple as like on LinkedIn. If I want to connect with you, I can't go in there and say, let me tell you, I'm a leadership development expert. This is what I do. This is what I am. What I need to do is say, Harry, the reason I would like to connect with you is I understand that you're an author of a book that is really talks about sales from the heart, not the head. And I'd love to connect with you. Do you think I've just increased the chances that you're going to want to connect with me?
Big time.
Because it's about you, not about me.
Right. Big time. This is so good. And this is an opportunity here where I can share. You've got me so excited by this conversation. So I'm in sales and this happens way too often. You are everything that I believe in, you're saying. I am this same way. I am all about serving. I do not want to be viewed as a pushy salesperson. I will hold back longer than most people will be to ask for the order. I'll still ask. But the thing that I was thinking about here is that I feel my body. I feel the excitement hearing this. And this is where in selling, we just need to bite our tongue. We need to just breathe and say, I've got to let this guy finish. He is selling himself on what I sell. And even though this is just related to the podcast, it's just for me to share when someone is very excited, they're passionate, they have a problem, they want you to sell to them, do not interrupt. The lesson here that I want to share is that as excited as I am, I have to let you finish and just breathe and relax. This is the thing. Too many people get caught up in sales and say, this guy needs what I've got. I'm ready. And they pounce.
Oh, I love this. My
Right?
example I love using on this is it's like going to a doctor, right?
Mhm.
You're not feeling well. You walk in a doctor's office and you say, Doc, I don't feel well. And what he does is, Mike, okay, here's a little blue pill, take it. Right? What type of, I'm glad you laughed on that. So my wife doesn't like when I use that as a joke. But at any rate, at the end of the day, my doc until he retired was Roger Schultz. And this guy, I would walk into his office, I'd sit down and talk to him, and he'd literally take his chair and lean up against the wall. And he'd sit there and he'd talk to me, he'd ask questions. And then he'd change the subject, and come back and ask other questions. I felt like it was the only patient. And whatever Roger told me to do, to take, or whatever, okay, I did, because he spent the time diagnosing. And that's what you're describing. To me, that's what the sales process is. I cannot sell you something unless it's just some kind of a low transaction.
Right. Yeah.
I cannot sell you something that you don't need / don't want. Can't do it. My job is to go and understand what you want and what you need. And that's what you say, that they sell themselves. I'm not sure as much as they're selling themselves as you're discovering what their true, issues are. And so the roadmap becomes evident to both you and them, because you're able to share information with them that fits in line with their decision-making process.
Yeah.
And to me, that's when we're trying to scale a business, we're trying to attract customers. That's the art. That's the space we need to play in.
Yep, exactly. I was talking to someone earlier today, and they said, well, the owner could always outsource the sales. And that's always an option, but you lose, like you mentioned. Well, I'm going to ask you, what is the downside of doing that?
It's huge, especially when you're a startup, especially now. In today's time, there's resources that you can do. You can go in and you can bring in call centers. You can do other things that are lead generation magnets. That's not outsourcing sales. That's outsourcing the attraction or the development of leads, which is more of a transactional. It's a grinding type of thing. And I think there's some merit to that. There's some merit in that if it works with you.
Yep.
But you're still responsible for taking and formatting and being able to drive. Today's automation. Can you automate the sales process? Yeah, probably. For a few businesses. Most businesses you can't. You have to have somebody shepherding that. And so to me, as a business owner, I have to be the tip of the spear, which is the person either driving the lead generation. I got to drive the lead generation. Then I got to drive the follow-up process. I got to be the person involved in each one of those stages to make a decision of where do we now put a human mind from my company in, pull it from outsourcing and bringing it in-house. I'm not old school, and you aren't either. I mean, because it's like, I got more technology in this room. I no longer have an office. I got a studio. Right. So I'm a huge believer in that. But if your business has any type of service aspect of it, where you're interacting a human being to human being in some form or fashion, you got to be very, very careful about making sure that you're managing the integrity of the interaction that you have with the prospects and customers that you have, so that you're building trust with all transactions. And you only do that when you can move from a pitch mentality into a probe mentality through the sales process.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, and what do you suggest for the entrepreneur who's great at a craft, maybe is a marketing genius, maybe whatever, is a great accountant, and they start their own business and zero sales, not zero, but limited sales skills? What's your suggestion for those people who have never really been in the selling side of the business?
Yeah, the example you give is as an accountant who has minimal sales skills. That's where the network is going to become just that much more profound. But so you have to go out and establish relationships with people who are bankers. You have to go and establish relationships with attorneys. You have to think of who are the people who might have clients who would have a need for somebody with your particular service that you're trying to provide. And it's in today's time, there's high value because the banker is going to want to have relationships with people that can refer people back to the bank. And so that's it. So it's not a user relationship, but it's a connection relationship. But just as you were asking that, I think
Really
there's a
good.
step that goes before that.
Okay.
And the step that goes before that might be helpful for somebody who's not feeling strong in sales is to get out a piece of paper, right? And to write their company name on that piece of paper on one side. And then think about, what is it that separates me from the other CPAs, the other bankers, the other lawyers? What is it separates me from them? And sit down and build a list. And you can't say the disadvantage of course, it is length of time in the business. They got more than I do. I've never selected an accountant based upon the numbers of years they've had, because no matter, it's like myself, I would go out and try to sell the fact our company is a 25-year-old company until I found out that my competitors, there was four, there was Burnett, there's, Liberty, there's Richard Wayne Roberts. They were 28, 29, 32, 33. That's not a differentiate.
Right.
It has to do with trying to find out from a value standpoint, if I'm a CPA, can I narrow the market down and go after a niche that will help me be able to service the clients in a better way, because I just simply know a little bit more about that, particularly the type of industry, geographic location, tax issue, something along those lines. I love this. I'm a guy that I met recently, Walter Bonds, played for the Mavericks. He's a professional speaker. And he's got this, I love his name. There's riches and niches.
Yeah.
Today's time, the internet makes you feel like you got to try to be something for everyone. And it's the exact opposite. Seth Godin, one of the global leaders when it comes to marketing. You know Seth's name. He's the one who said, build a list as big as you can. And now he says, shrink the list as fast as you can to find as few people as you can who really, really believe that Harry Sprite is this is the guy I want to listen to.
Yeah.
Build that community out, get that connection out.
Wow. This is so good. All right. So you have hit so many home runs here, Mike. I certainly appreciate it. When you started your business and going out on your own, what out of all the things that you said, what did you say or do that got you moving the fastest, would you say?
Can I edit the question and answer the question? What do I wish?
You can edit all of my questions because, they're a little choppy.
No, that's not it. I want to flip in the other direction. It goes back what I wish I did earlier than I did now, because once I started doing it, it started moving.
Yeah.
And it goes back into, do you have a CRM system? Do you have a customer relation base? And I don't care if you're a fast food place. It doesn't matter what you are. Do you have a way of being able to track the people who are your best clients, and to be able to look at using data to be able to continue to reach out to them? There's tremendous value in having an area, a database that you can electronically put information out to the community in your space. And because of what I find out now, because that fits into social media. Now, whenever I've started this year, I know I've got gray hair, but guess what? I'm doing reels now. Okay?
Nice.
I'm doing reels. And what's happening is the number of people that are seeing them it's growing. When I first did it, I think my brother and my cousin only saw it. But as I feed it into my database, it's starting to take off. But that database is a critical aspect of having a good CRM system to be able to collect the information, because now you have a systems and process around it. We're going back to where we started from, that you can manage the data that's going in so you can see what's going on, because that's going to help you to scale your business, I think, in profound ways.
No, it's very nice. Such great advice. You are right up there with wisdom like ChatGPT, sir. I mean, just a little humor, but it's funny. I put in with ChatGPT 4, what are the things that a business really needs to do from the beginning? And website, CRM, email campaigns was right at the top of the list. I mean, I don't remember the rest, but it's just, you nailed a lot of that and just tons of value in this conversation. Definitely have to hit rewind if there is rewind anymore, but replay back, to hit that back arrow and replay a lot of this because there's tons of value in it. So Mike, where can people find more of your brilliance, sir?
You've used the word wisdom and brilliance. My brother would argue with you tremendously on this. I just need to know that. So I'm going to call him as soon as I get off of this call. The name of my company is Lighting the Path. So you can pick me up on the internet at lightingthepath.net. You can also catch up with me on YouTube. I've got a YouTube series called Strategies for Tomorrow's Leaders. And you may actually, if you go and look in the last couple of months, you may find an interview that I've done with this famous warrior by the name of Barry Spate. So that was one of my favorite interviews. So I've got that. And then also I'm on Spotify. I've got a podcast series also. So look, and you can find me on Amazon because of the book that I wrote called Equipped to Lead: The Extraordinary Power of Emotional Intelligence.
This guy is omnipresent, folks. I want to be like Mike. Or was that about another Mike? But
that's another
anyway,
Mike. That's another.
This has been great. We'll put a bunch of that in the show notes for everyone. So great stuff, Mike LeJeune. Keep up the good work and inspiring people. Great, great, great stuff.
Harry, enjoyed this tremendously. Thanks for the invite.
You got it, man. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to Sales Made Easy. If you found value in our conversations, please subscribe and leave a review. We'll be back soon with more insights and inspiration. Until then, keep serving and providing value to others. Good things will happen. Thank you for listening to Sales Made Easy. If you found value in our conversations, please subscribe and leave a review. We'll be back soon with more insights and inspiration. Until then, keep serving and providing value to others. Good things will happen. Thank you for listening to Sales Made Easy. If you found value in our conversations, please subscribe and leave a review. We'll be back soon with more insights and inspiration. Until then, keep serving and providing value to others. Good things will happen.